What's going on YouTube? West Hobbies RC. So today we are back with the brand new Blade Infusion 180. So we are going to do the radio setup in this video. So we have everything laid out here on the table. We have my IX12, we have the brand new Infusion 180, Spektrum Smart 800 milliamp pack. We have our little goodie bag that they sent us with our bind plug and stuff that we need, and a manual, the Bible of all models. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and solder up the IC2 onto the battery. Let's get that done, and then let's get the camera put on a tripod, and let's start with the radio setup. So let's go solder on a connector. So we got one of the 3S 800 milliamp packs that have the JST connector on them. So I figured I would go over just soldering the connectors on real quick. So what I am going to do is going to be very simple. Now, what I like to do a lot of the times is I will grab a opposite end. So for example, right now we are soldering the female end, and I will grab a male end if it's an XT30, XT60, Dean's, EC5, whatever we're soldering. Unfortunately, right now I don't have a extra male end of the IC2 connector, so we're gonna have to be very careful while doing this. The reason why I like to grab the extra end is because you can very easily melt these outer casings. So we have to be very careful. So now when you look at the connector, you'll see a plus and you see a minus. And yes, my hands are extremely dirty because I was just working on my motorcycle, so I have grease in all crevices, even though I just washed them. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one wire at a time. So I'm going to start with the red wire. So I'm going to shorten these up a little bit because they're really long. So I'm going to snip off about here. Now we're going to want to make them both the same length, but we don't want them to touch. So if you cut these at the same time, you risk shorting the battery out. So now what I like to do is I like to strip off about a 1/4 inch. So now we strip the wire back. Okay, and with doing it this way, we don't run the risk of shorting anything. So now what I'm going to do is another little tip and trick is on your, I like using a third hand, put a little bit of heat shrink over it so that way it doesn't cut into your wires. So we're just going to tin the wires. So when you're soldering anything, you always tin the wires. So now I have not soldered with a camera and tripod in my way. But what we're going to do is we're going to heat the wire up, and it's just basic soldering. Something everybody should learn. Get a good solder flow, and you want the wire to look just like that. That is a very good tinned wire. So now we are going to grab our connector, and we're going to remember, look, because you're going to have a positive and a negative. So we are working on the positive right now. So flip it over, and let's do it to where you guys can see what I'm doing at the same time. All right, so we're going to be working on this end here. So we are going to tin that end as well. So we're going to give a nice tin to it. I have the soldering gun at about 650 degrees, not super hot, but not cold. So we're just going to give it a quick tin. So now that wire is tinned. So now grab your little cap. If you are soldering XTs or IC, you're going to have this little cap. So we're going to slide this little cap down on the wire, and then carefully get your end hot, both ends hot, and you want a good solder joint. So just hold it there. They should push together very nicely, and you should get a good solder joint. So now we have a good solder joint. As you can see, it flowed very nicely. I am extremely pleased with that. So now let's grab a piece of tape. Grab yourself a piece of tape. It can be anything. I'm using blue painter's tape. Doesn't really matter. It could be electrical tape. It's just going on there long enough to help stop anything from shorting out the negative. So now we don't want to short. That's what we're going is we don't want to short, and make sure your end is on. If not, you will be redoing this. So go ahead and carefully cut your negative off at the same distance and do the same thing. So just go ahead, strip about a 1/4 inch off. You're going to tin your wires, and then you are going to solder up your other side. It is very easy, very very simple. Just remember when you're soldering, be very careful on the heat. You will melt these connectors. So let's just do a nice quick little solder job. Remember, pre-tin the wire. Make sure it flows beautifully. And then let's re-jig up the connector. And we are going to do the same thing. You guys see that? Yeah. And we're going to do the same thing. Let's just make sure that we heat this connector up. Get some solder in there, but not too much. Be very careful on your heat. Clean your tip throughout. Make sure that you slide your little end. So that way you don't have to redo this. Okay, slide this down. And it is really, really simple. So let's heat that connector up. Let's get this hot. And they will just push together like that. And you are done. All right, just like that, we are done with the soldering. Our joints look great. Soldered flow good. So now you're just going to grab this little cap and of course double check that you have the positive and the negative. Just take your little cap and push it on. They can be very tight and a pain, but that's a good thing because you don't want these caps coming loose. So go ahead and push that cap all the way on. You might have to use a little screwdriver. And then this battery is finished. So now let's get back to the radio setup. All right, so we just soldered up the IC2 connector. So we have that all done. We got positive to positive, negative to negative on the connector, and we are ready to start the setup. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our manual and we are going to flip to page 4. Now, page 4 is going to give you your baseline setup. Now, depending on if you're new or not new, your basic setup is gonna be your basic setup on any model. But what you really need to stick to and look at is a few things. Is number one, you want to look at your throttle curves because if this is a governed ESC, these are the percentages that the ESC needs to see. Number two, you're going to want to look at your pitch curve. Just to give you an idea, you can adjust your pitch curve to your liking. And the most important part is this mixing down here at the bottom. That is going to be for your rescue, your safe, whatever you want to call it. But everything else is going to be normal. If you're going to set up your dual rates and expos, that's your preference. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and grab my iX12. Now, I already went ahead and created a new model to make this a little faster for setup. I haven't named it yet, but I'll do that after. But video purposes, already created a new model and the radio was asleep. So, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go make sure it's a heli, which we did. It is a helicopter. You're going to start, make sure it's a helicopter. And then your swash plate's going to be normal, and that's going to be normal on any time you're doing a helicopter setup. So now, the most important stuff. So we're going to go to flight mode setup. So on regular spektrum transmitters, it's going to be a little different than the iX12, but it's all the same basic thing. So we're going to go to swash plate first, and let's just make sure that we are at 1 servo normal, which we should be because that's the way all spektrum radios are when you set them up. So we can get out of that. So next thing we're going to go down to is flight mode setup. Now this is where we're going to start changing things. So we have flight mode setup is going to be switch 1 is going to be switch B. So that is going to be this switch back here.
Stunt normal.
This is going to be your idle up mode. Your normal mode, your stunt 1, your stunt 2. Now, if you don't like this switch back here and you want to move it to any other switch, then what you're going to do is you're going to click here and you are going to select what switch
Stunt
you
1,
want it to
normal.
be. So now it's switch G. It's going to be this top right switch, so on and so forth. You put it on whatever switch
Stunt
is
1,
your personal
normal.
preference. So now, for switch 2, we're going to inhibit. Now, throttle hold. Okay, throttle hold can be whatever switch you want. Now, they tell you to do it on switch H, which is this back switch on spektrum transmitters, and that's personally the switch I've always used. That's just because I've flown JR and spektrum for many, many years. So I was just putting these switches up. So that is why I always use the back right switch of switch H back here, but that is your personal choice. Now, one thing to look at, which is a very important step. See down here where your 0 is not highlighted, but your 1 is highlighted. Okay, you see where your little bar is down here on the bottom? Our switch is away from us, so towards the back of the radio, which is the way I fly because I like my fingers to go here. So when you flip hold on, you want it to illuminate, highlight the selected side. That's how you know hold is working. If you want it the other way around, then what you would do is you would touch, or whatever transmitter you're using,
Normal.
you would select. So now, hold is with switch away.
Normal.
and normal, but of course I personally don't like that, so we are going to go back this way. So now we know it's working.
Normal.
Let's move on. Okay, so channel assign is the next thing on the setup. Okay, so now with channel assign, what we're going to do is we're going to go into channel input configuration. So we are in channel input configuration, and what we need to change is 5. 5 we need to be to the flight mode switch. So we're going to select 5. We're going to select our flight mode switch.
Normal.
So now our
Stud
gear.
1. Stud 2. Normal.
All right, now we have that right. Now we can exit out of this and we are good to go. Your next thing is going to be frame rate. Make sure you're at DSMX 11 milliseconds. So now IX12 is a little different. It's going to be hybrid. Yours is going to say DSMX. So now our next step is going to be a little different. Okay, so down here in the functions list, this is going to be your servo travel and your reversing. So one thing that is very important, so let's go back. Let's go back to model adjustment here on servo setup. Now this is where you're going to go in and you're going to want this to be 100% all the way across the board, 100, and you want all your reverses to be normal. So let's just go to reversing and double check everything is normal. Okay, and then let's go to travel and let's double check that we have 100 all the way across the board. So now we don't need to do anything else in this mode or in this section of the menu. Now your next menu is going to be your dual rate and expo side. So now personally speaking, I do not fly with any expo, any dual rate, none of that. I like 100% throws all the time, a very sensitive model. So for you personally, you're going to go into, if you like dual rate and expo, you're going to go into your dual rate and expo. You're going to select the switch that you want for aileron, elevator, and rudder, and then you're going to follow your 100, 75, 75, 100, and 25% expo. And of course, you can adjust this to your liking depending on if you are a beginner or more advanced pilot. Now, so let's move on. Our next step of the menu is gyro. It's going to be inhibited. So all gyros will be inhibited when you set up a new model. So now just to make sure, we're going to go in and it is inhibited. Now our next thing is going to be timer. So now timer, if I remember right, is on this page. So okay, so now our timer, they want you to do timer as a countdown 5 minutes, throttle out at 25%. So now I'm going to change that a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to do 5 minutes like they said, but for the switch, I'm not going to do throttle out because then every time you come back on your stick, like for 3D negative collective, you will shut the timer on and off. So I always put it to my hold mode. So when I flip off of hold, timer will now start. And when I flip back onto hold, timer stops. Okay, and then you're going to set your timer clear. Me personally, I put timer clear to this back switch. That is just my liking, and you do it however you want, and then you set up all your other little menus and options. So now our next step is going to be travel, which is going to be pitch, auxiliary 1, 2, 3, and 4 is all going to be 100, and normal. So we don't need to touch any of that. It's a very simple radio setup. Helicopters nowadays have gotten so simple to set up. It's not even funny. It's really not. All right, so now we're going to go into our curves now. So now this is where we're going to get into everything that we need to do. So now on, oh yeah, it's in the menu I was just in. I'm still learning the IX12. So we're going to do throttle curve. Okay, so now throttle curve is going to be, so now we're going to get out of hold mode. We're going to start with normal mode throttle curve. So if we read our booklet here, it's going to be a 0-65 flat curve. So that's what we're going to set it to. So we're going to go 65. Oh, we went too far. Doop, 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 doop. Okay, and then we're going to do a 65 all the way across the board. And then you're going to do that all the way across, 65% for normal mode. And again, because of a governed ESC, you want to see a flat curve because what will happen is your head speed will jump up and down. So we want to see 65%. So if you have a linear throttle curve, as you advance your curve, your throttle through the collective, you'll hear your head speed jump real high and drop real low, jump real high and drop real low. And we don't want that. So now you're just going to do this all the way across the board. So we have a 0, 60. Now we're going to go to stunt 1. So now stunt 1, if we look here, they're asking for an 80% flat curve. So we're going to drop this up to 80%. Oop, went a little too high. Okay, and then we're gonna jump this up to 80% flat curve. We're just doing a flat curve here. Ooh, we got that one perfect on the dot. And then we're gonna jump this to 80%. Flatten this curve out. Oh, went over by 1. And then same here. Let's move this up. Oh, there we go. And we're gonna drop this down to 80%. Damn, went too far. Okay. There we go. Now we are done. Stunt 2 is going to be easy. Stunt 2 is 100% flat curve. So we're going to go down to here. Grab this. We're going to bring it all. We're going to bring it all the way up to 100. 100. 100. And 100. Now we don't need to touch the 5 point because it is already done. So now our throttle curves are finished. So now let's move on to pitch curve. Pitch curve is going to be very simple. Pitch curve is a 30, 40, 50, 75, 100 for normal mode. So that's going to take out negative pitch. So we're going to jump up to 30% here. And we went too far. So we're going to do a 30% curve here. And then we're going to jump this up to a 40%. Okay, and then we're going to leave 50, 75, and 100. So we have a 30, we have a 40, 50, 75, and 100. So now we're going to go to idle up 1. Stunt 1, it's going to be a 0, 25, a linear pitch curve.
Stunt 2.
Stunt 2 is a linear pitch curve.
Normal.
And then now hold mode, they want a 25, 37, 50. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and, oh, wrong one. We're going to go to 25. Drop that back down. So 25. 25. And then 37. I was looking through the phone and missed what I was doing. 37 or 47? Yeah, 37, 50, 75, 100. So now we are done with our pitch and throttle curve. And now the last thing on the radio setup is mixing. So we're going to go down here to a new mix. It's going to be a normal mix. Okay. And then what we are going to be doing, normal mix, is we want to do I. So scroll down till you find dash I dash. You could also hit the button. And then we want to mix that
Time
with
remaining 4 minutes.
Gear. So now we have I dash I with gear. We're going to have a 0 with a negative 125%. Okay. So we have a 0, we have a negative 125%. We're going to have a positive 100% offset. And it's going to go to switch I. Now this is going to be
timer reset.
Your safe. So now we're going to clip that, and we might move timer reset. But now,
timer reset. Timer reset.
See your gear.
Timer reset.
Now we're going to move timer reset to another switch, or we might move rescue back to this switch, which is actually what I personally like. But for video purposes, we are going to leave
timer
it
reset
on switch I. So now our radio setup is 100% completed by the book, and let's bind them up. So we got the battery slid in. Now we haven't put the Velcro on yet, but we just slid the battery in. We have our IC2 connectors on, and before we plug anything in, let's double check on what we soldered is correct. So we know plus to plus, minus to minus, we know that that is the proper way. And again, like I explained, there's a plus and there's a minus on the connector, but always double check because it would suck to smoke a brand new helicopter. So we're going to grab our trusty old little bind plug, and it is going to go into this first port here. So we're going to plug this little guy in here. Okay, so just plugs in like that. Nice little tab. And we are going to plug the model in. Now, we have no blades on. Make sure you take the blades off. So we're going to plug it in. We have a light blinking. We are going to grab our transmitter. Okay, and we are going to put it into bind mode.
Binding.
And then we're going to take the radio away.
Bind complete DSMX 11 milliseconds. Telemetry.
We hit OK. So now, we are binded up. Forward, backwards, left, right, We're in throttle hold, positive, negative, collective. Everything is working like it should. So let's go ahead and pull the bind plug out. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's look at our telemetry. Let's see what we got. We should have full range of telemetry. Okay, let's see. So we are seeing receiver voltage. So we have flight pack voltage, minimum, maximum, and that's pretty much it. So we just have flight pack voltage, frame rate, and it might be different because I don't have the G2 smart batteries, but we still get our battery voltage. So because we don't have the smart batteries, we might not see the full capable telemetry like we do on the Fusion 180. So let's double check again. We got left, we got right, back, forward. All right, we got negative, we got positive. Let's flip it off the throttle hold. Let's advance the throttle. Tail motor seems very fast, very smooth and responsive. Everything looks great. Let's advance the motor up a little bit. Everything is working like it should. There you guys go. That simple. Set the helicopter up, bind it to your transmitter. It is that easy. So let's throw the blades back on this thing and let's wrap this video. And just like that, we are ready to go fly the all-new Infusion 180. So I'm going to name the model, get a picture of it thrown in the IX-12, but we are complete setup. Everything is working like it should. So we are ready to fly. It is super simple, super easy to program it to your radio. For you guys that don't have a actual programmable radio, or you're just moving up from, like, say, a ready to fly Nano or a 230 or something that has like a DXE in it, get yourself a nice programmable 6-channel minimum radio and you will have it through the life of your helicopters. I recommend 8-channel minimum just for added features down the road, but 6 channels you can get no problem. And as long as you follow this book right here on any Blade model, I mean, it is literally, it's so simple, it's not even funny. It is so simple. So as long as you follow this setup, and this again is going to go for a DX6Z, DX6, 7, 8, 9, 18, DSXO, IX12, IX20, NX series, 6, 7, 6, 8, and 10. This is all you need, and this will get you flying right off the bat. So I hope this video was useful for some of you guys. Next video will be made in flight. Stay tuned. Give this video a like, subscribe, take care, and have a great day. And enjoy the Infusion 180.